Ankush, I'm fascinated because for all of the talk about January 6th, January 6th, January 6th, we don't get to January 6th until page 35 in this indictment. What do we make of the fact that this is sort of about this complex legal theory of what Donald Trump and a cohort of some pretty questionable lawyers was doing versus the January 6th events?
Well, obviously, I haven't yet to read it. I'm here with you gathering this information. But what I infer is a couple of things. One, it sounds like from the charges and the fact that January 6th isn't mentioned until very deep in the indictment, as you just indicated, that they don't have compelling evidence tying Trump to any violence on that day or any planning or coordination of the rioting that day. That's something obviously everyone is going to be scouring the indictment for, but that's my guess based on what you just told me. In terms of the rest of it, I mean, obviously, from the perspective of people who take issue with this effort, they believe it was a very convoluted, complicated, extensive effort over the course of a couple of months. And, it doesn't surprise me that Smith and his prosecutors would try to lay it out in a lengthy document, a speaking indictment in this way, in order to underscore the alleged significance of the conduct and the complexity of it. And I imagine, as we saw with the indictment in Florida, a fair amount of effort will have been put into this document to try to make it as accessible to ordinary Americans as possible. And that might also explain the length.
Yeah, no, it is long, and I think we can't figure, the co-conspirators are not named, but those of us who've been following this, it's pretty easy to figure out who at least a couple of them are. What do we make of the fact that they're not named in the indictment? Does that mean that they have ratted, flipped, turned state's evidence, whatever you want to call it?
It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that they have not been charged in this particular indictment, and the government does not name unindicted co-conspirators, even if they've pled out, even if they're cooperating, and even if they are eventually charged down the line, which some or all of these other people may be.
Okay, what do we glean from this in terms of, and how do we figure out what exactly the special counsel has that is new? In terms of, based on the evidence that we've all known and we've heard and read over the past 2.5 years about what happened between the election and January 6th, which has been pretty well litigated, especially by the January 6th committee and laid out. Does there need to be anything new in terms of evidence to make the charges that Jack Smith has laid out here?
Oh, I think there's going to need to be new information. I expect there will be new information. And the area in which I would be particularly looking for it is, obviously there's a big body of public information and evidence concerning things that Trump said publicly. The January 6th hearings, we heard a lot about what people were telling Trump, things like Bill Barr, Pat Cipollone, and all that. But as a result of claims of executive privilege, we heard very little about what Trump was saying in response, or what Trump was saying himself in closed doors, in meetings with these other people, in private settings. So I think anything that is in the indictment that is sort of concerns things that Trump said in some of these private settings is likely to be new and will likely to have been obtained by people who are in those rooms. And that's going to be new, at least to most of us, I think.
Yeah, Ankush, appreciate you staying with us for the hour. I know you have to run. We're better for your analysis. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.